The day a man rejected me at the altar wasn't the day my life ended. It was the day the most dangerous man in the city decided it was finally beginning. I used to believe humiliation had a sound. It wasn't laughter. It wasn't whispers. It was silence. The kind that settled over an entire church when every guest suddenly stopped breathing at the same time. The stained glass windows bathed the sanctuary in warm shades of crimson and gold, but I couldn't feel any of it. My fingers clutched the tiny bouquet so tightly that the white roses trembled with me. Beside my leg, Lily reached for my hand, her tiny fingers wrapping around mine with complete trust. She was only 5. She didn't understand why my heart had been pounding since dawn. She only knew Mommy looked beautiful today. The organist finished the last gentle note. I looked into Daniel's eyes, waiting for the vows we'd rehearsed a dozen times. Instead, he stepped backward, just one step. It felt like the floor disappeared beneath my feet. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice carrying far too easily through the quiet church. "I can't do this." Confused laughter escaped somewhere in the back. Someone thought he was joking. I smiled too, for exactly 1 second. Then he looked at Lily. "I can't spend my life raising another man's child." Every word landed like shattered glass. The smile froze on my face. Around us, dozens of guests exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel's mother slowly lowered her head, saying nothing. His father folded his arms as though this outcome had always been expected. No one came to stand beside me. No one defended the little girl still holding my hand. Lily tugged gently on my dress. "Mommy." Her tiny voice almost broke me. I knelt despite my wedding gown pooling across the marble floor. "It's okay, sweetheart." It wasn't. Nothing about this was okay. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck without meeting my eyes. "You never told me it would feel this different." "I told you everything," I whispered. "I tried. I thought I could accept it." He finally looked at Lily again. "But every time I see her, I remember she isn't mine." A quiet gasp rippled across the pews. My chest tightened so painfully I thought I might collapse right there beneath the cross where we'd promised forever only minutes earlier. I had spent years believing honesty could overcome judgment. Years believing love could erase the label people quietly placed on women like me. Single mother. Too complicated. Too much baggage. Not worth choosing. I swallowed against the lump burning in my throat. "If that's how you feel." My voice cracked. "Then just leave." He did. Without another word. Without looking back. The heavy church doors opened. Closed. And the echo lingered far longer than the man who walked away. For several endless seconds, nobody moved. The photographer lowered his camera. The florist quietly wiped her eyes. Even the priest seemed unable to find the right words. I stood there alone in a white dress that suddenly felt like a costume for someone else's dream. Lily wrapped both little arms around my waist. "I'm sorry, Mommy." The apology from a 5-year-old hurt more than Daniel's rejection ever could. I hugged her tightly, blinking back tears that refused to stay hidden. Then, the massive wooden doors opened once more. Not hurriedly, not dramatically, just deliberately. Every head in the church turned. Heavy footsteps echoed across the marble aisle. Measured, confident, unhurried. Men in perfectly tailored black suits entered first, silently stepping to either side, like shadows making room for someone infinitely more important. And then he appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-tailored suit. A neatly trimmed beard framing a face carved with impossible calm. Black ink disappeared beneath the cuff of his white shirt before slipping beneath expensive fabric again. His icy eyes swept across the room once. Only once. Until they found me. He didn't look at the guests. He didn't acknowledge Daniel. He didn't ask anyone for permission. He simply walked forward, straight toward the woman another man had abandoned at the altar. Vincent Moretti stopped 3 steps in front of me. The church seemed to shrink around him. Not because he raised his voice. Not because he demanded attention. But because every person inside instinctively gave it to him. The silence that had belonged to my humiliation now belonged to him. I had never seen the man before. Yet somehow, everyone else had. A ripple of unease swept through the pews. Someone whispered his name. Another person immediately shushed them. Even Daniel, who had walked away only moments ago, slowly turned back toward the altar. For the first time that morning, he looked afraid. Vincent's icy blue eyes never left mine. They weren't filled with pity. I would have hated pity. They weren't filled with desire either. What I saw instead was something I couldn't understand. Certainty. As though he had already made a decision before he ever walked through those doors. He glanced briefly at Lily. My little girl tightened her grip around my hand, but didn't hide behind me. Children notice things adults ignored. She didn't see danger. She simply tilted her head. "Mister," she whispered softly. Vincent's expression softened for the briefest heartbeat. A change so small I almost believed I had imagined it. Then he looked toward the priest. "Is the ceremony over?" The elderly priest blinked in confusion. "I suppose." Vincent nodded once. "Good." His polished shoes echoed across the marble floor as he took the final step toward us. He removed his tailored black jacket without a word. Before I could react, he gently placed it over my shoulders. The expensive wool carried a faint scent of cedar wood and expensive cologne. Warm, solid, safe. I stared at him. "What are you doing?" My voice barely existed. He answered calmly. "Protecting your dignity." The words struck harder than Daniel's rejection. No one had spoken for me today. Not my relatives. Not Daniel's family. Not even my closest friends. But this complete stranger had. Daniel finally found his courage. "Who the hell are you?" Vincent slowly turned. The movement alone made several men standing near the entrance straighten instinctively. "I wasn't speaking to you." Daniel frowned. "This doesn't concern you." Vincent studied him for several quiet seconds. "You abandoned a woman." His voice remained perfectly controlled. "You abandoned a child." Another pause. "Now it concerns me." Daniel laughed nervously. "This is between me and Emily." "No," Vincent replied. "It stopped being yours the second you made her apologize for your cowardice." Nobody breathed. Daniel's father stepped forward. "Sir, I think you should leave." One glance. That was all Vincent gave him. The older man immediately stopped talking. I couldn't explain it. Vincent never threatened anyone. Never raised his voice. Yet the air itself seemed to obey him. Lily looked up at me. "Mommy." I looked down. She pointed toward Vincent. "He's sad." I blinked. Sad. This man looked carved from stone. Yet somehow, my daughter had seen something I hadn't. Vincent crouched until he was almost eye level with her. "What makes you think that?" Lily shrugged. "Your eyes." For the first time since entering the church, the corner of Vincent's mouth lifted. Not a smile. Not completely. Just enough to reveal the man hidden beneath the legend. "You're very observant." She nodded proudly. "I know." A few quiet chuckles escaped from the guests. The unbearable tension cracked ever so slightly. Then Vincent stood again. He reached inside his jacket. Several guests gasped. Instead of a weapon, he removed a simple black velvet ring box. My heartbeat stumbled. Surely. No. That couldn't be happening. Vincent opened the box. Inside rested a plain platinum wedding band. Elegant. Timeless. Untouched. He looked directly into my eyes. "I'm not asking because I pity you." His voice was low enough that only those nearest could hear. "I'm asking because no woman should remember her wedding day for the way she was abandoned." The church disappeared. There was only him. Only Lily. Only the impossible question hanging between us. Then Vincent spoke the words that would change every tomorrow waiting for us. "Emily Carter." He extended his hand. "Come home with me." Sometimes the impossible choice isn't between two men. It's between the life you've always known and the future you never imagined. I stared at Vincent's outstretched hand. Everything inside me screamed to refuse. Normal women didn't leave their own wedding with strangers. Normal mothers didn't trust men whose names made entire rooms fall silent. But nothing about today had been normal. My bouquet slipped from my fingers. White roses scattered across the marble floor. Nobody bent down to pick them up. I swallowed hard. "You don't even know me." Vincent's expression never changed. "I know enough." "No." I shook my head. "You know what happened to me. There's a difference." His voice remained calm. "I intend to learn the rest." The words caught me off guard. There was no arrogance. No ownership. No manipulation. Only quiet certainty. Daniel scoffed from halfway down the aisle. "This is ridiculous." He walked back toward us, forcing confidence into every step. "You can't actually be considering this." I looked at him. Really looked. Only minutes earlier, I had imagined growing old beside this man. Now all I could see was someone terrified of responsibility. "You left." My voice sounded stronger than I felt. "You made your choice." Daniel's jaw tightened. I was emotional. "You humiliated her." Vincent interrupted. Daniel ignored him. "Emily, don't do something stupid just because you're embarrassed." Embarrassed. The word landed like another slap. Not heartbroken. Not betrayed. Embarrassed. Lily slowly stepped in front of me. She was so small that the lace of my wedding dress brushed over her shoulders. She looked directly at Daniel. You made Mommy cry. The church became painfully quiet again. Daniel sighed impatiently. Lily. She shook her head. My daddy never makes Mommy cry. His face twisted. I'm not your father. I know. Her answer was soft. But you were supposed to be. I felt something inside me crack. Not from sadness. From clarity. Vincent never spoke. He simply waited. As though he understood this decision belonged entirely to me. One of the men standing near the entrance approached him quietly. Boss. His voice barely carried. The cars are ready. Boss. The single word spread through the church like a cold wind. Guests exchanged frightened looks. A woman covered her mouth. Someone whispered, That's Vincent Moretti. Another answered, The Moretti family. I didn't know why those names mattered. But everyone else clearly did. Vincent didn't even acknowledge the murmurs. His attention remained on Lily. What do you think? He asked her gently. My eyes widened. He was asking my daughter? Lily studied him with complete seriousness. Do you lie? No. Do you yell? Only when necessary. She nodded thoughtfully. Do you leave people? His eyes flickered toward me. Never. She smiled. It was tiny, almost shy. Then she slipped her little hand into his. My heart nearly stopped. Lily. She looked back at me. He feels safe. I had spent 5 years protecting her from bad decisions. Yet somehow, she had made one before I could stop her. Or maybe, she had seen something I couldn't. Vincent carefully adjusted the oversized jacket around my shoulders. You don't have to answer today. I frowned. What? I asked you to come home with me. His voice was almost gentle. I didn't ask you to marry me today. I blinked. The entire church had assumed he was claiming me. Instead, he was offering me a place to breathe. A place to recover. No demands. No deadlines. No conditions. Daniel laughed bitterly. You actually believe this guy is some kind of hero? Vincent finally turned toward him again. No. His answer was immediate. I know exactly what I am. The honesty chilled me. I've made decisions I'm not proud of. His eyes returned to mine. But abandoning a woman at the altar? A long pause settled between every heartbeat. Will never be one of them. I felt tears sting my eyes again. Not because I was weak. Because for the first time all day, someone had chosen me without asking me to become someone else first. I looked down at Lily. She squeezed Vincent's hand with one tiny finger wrapped around one of his. Then she looked up at me and smiled. Can we go with him, Mommy? Standing beneath the broken promises of one wedding, I realized I was only one answer away from walking into a completely different life. Every door you walk through closes another one behind you. I didn't realize I was leaving my old life until the church disappeared in the rearview mirror. I never answered Vincent. Not with words. Instead, I bent down, picked up the wilted bouquet from the marble floor, and quietly laid it across the first pew. It belonged there now, with every promise that had never been kept. When I turned around, Lily was already holding Vincent's hand with complete confidence. She looked back at me, waiting. Not afraid, just hopeful. I took one slow breath. Then another. Finally, I nodded. I'll come. Nothing more. Vincent didn't smile in triumph. He simply inclined his head once, as though my decision deserved respect rather than celebration. Thank you. Those 2 words surprised me more than anything else that had happened today. He thanked me, as if I had done him a favor. One of the men in black opened the massive church doors. Cool afternoon air rushed inside, carrying away the suffocating silence. As we stepped outside, flashes exploded from every direction. Cameras, phones. People had already gathered beyond the iron gates. News traveled fast. Humiliation traveled even faster. Emily, who was that man? Is it true the wedding was canceled? Are you leaving with Vincent Moretti? Voices collided into one deafening wave. I instinctively pulled Lily closer. Before panic could take over, Vincent moved. Not in front of me. Beside me. Close enough that his shoulders shielded both Lily and me from the crowd. Eyes forward, he said quietly. Don't answer anyone. I didn't. His men formed a silent path through the reporters without pushing or threatening anyone. They simply existed. And somehow that was enough. A sleek black sedan waited at the curb. One of the bodyguards opened the rear door. Vincent didn't enter first. He looked at Lily. Princess. She blinked. Would you like the window seat? She nodded enthusiastically. Yes, please. He helped her climb inside with surprising patience. making sure the hem of her little white dress didn't catch against the door. Only after Lily was comfortably seated did he turn to me. "There are fresh clothes waiting if you're uncomfortable." I looked down at my wedding gown. The white fabric was stained with tears, dust, and crushed rose petals. It no longer looked like a wedding dress. It looked like evidence. I slid into the car. The leather seats smelled faintly of cedar and rain. The door closed with a soft click. Outside, the reporters disappeared behind tinted glass. For the first time all day, it was quiet. No accusations. No whispers. Only the steady hum of the engine. The driver pulled away. No one spoke for nearly a minute. Lily rested her forehead against the window, fascinated by the passing streets. "They're following us." She pointed behind the car. I turned. Several motorcycles and 2 black SUVs moved behind us in perfect formation. "Your security?" I asked. Vincent nodded. "They've been with me for years." I hesitated. "Is all of this really necessary?" He looked out the opposite window before answering. "For me?" A faint pause. "No." His gaze shifted toward Lily. "For you?" Another pause. "Yes." A chill traveled down my spine. I wanted to ask why. Why would someone I had met less than an hour ago need security simply because I was beside him? Before I could speak, Lily leaned toward him. "Do you have candy?" I nearly covered my face in embarrassment. "Lily." Vincent reached into the center console. To my astonishment, he produced a small package of strawberry candies. "I keep these for long meetings." Lily giggled. "You don't look like someone who eats candy." A quiet breath escaped him. It wasn't quite laughter. "Neither do you." She accepted one happily before offering him another. "You should have one too." For a brief second, the feared mafia boss of the city stared at the tiny pink candy as though it were the most unfamiliar object in the world. Then, without hesitation, he unwrapped it, placed it in his mouth, and Lily smiled as though she had just won the greatest victory imaginable. Watching them, I realized something impossible. The man the entire city seemed to fear hadn't looked dangerous once since my daughter took his hand. He looked lonely, and for reasons I couldn't explain, that frightened me far more than his reputation ever could. Some houses impress you with their size. Others unsettle you with their silence. Vincent Moretti's home did both. The iron gates opened without a sound. They stretched wider than the church doors I had walked through only an hour earlier. The sedan rolled forward along a winding driveway lined with towering oak trees, their branches forming a canopy that swallowed the afternoon sunlight. No photographers, no reporters, no curious eyes, only silence. The mansion slowly emerged beyond the trees. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't covered in gold or marble like the homes people imagined when they heard the word billionaire. It looked timeless. Stone walls, dark windows, a wide porch overlooking an immaculate garden. Elegant, almost lonely. The car stopped beneath the entrance. Before I could reach for the handle, Vincent was already outside. He opened my door himself. No bodyguard rushed in. No servant interrupted. He simply extended his hand. "You don't have to." I glanced at him. "I can get out by myself." "I know." His hand remained where it was. "I wasn't helping because you're incapable." A faint pause. "I was helping because you've had a difficult day." Something inside my chest softened. I accepted his hand. His grip was steady, warm, gone the second my feet touched the ground. No lingering, no unnecessary touch. As though he understood invisible boundaries better than most men ever would. Lily spun in a slow circle, staring at the enormous house. "Do you live here all by yourself?" Vincent looked toward the front windows. "Most days." "Isn't it scary?" He gave the smallest shrug. "You get used to empty rooms." The answer lingered with me. Inside, the mansion was unexpectedly quiet. No expensive artwork screaming for attention. No crystal chandeliers. The walls displayed old black and white photographs instead. Families, children, a young boy sitting beside an elderly woman, a soldier in uniform. Simple moments. Not the decorations I expected from a man the city feared. A woman in her 60s approached us from the hallway. Silver hair, kind eyes, a gentle smile. "Welcome home, Mr. Moretti." Then she looked at me. "And you must be Emily." I blinked. "You know my name?" "I know enough to prepare your room." "Room, not rooms. Separate." Before I could process that detail, she crouched beside Lily. "And who's this beautiful young lady?" "Lily." "What a lovely name." The older woman smiled. "I'm Maria." Lily smiled back immediately. "I like you." Maria laughed softly. I was hoping you would. She disappeared toward the kitchen, promising cookies within 10 minutes. Cookies. Not contracts. Not security briefings. Cookies. Nothing about this house matched the stories people whispered. Vincent noticed me looking around. You expected something different. It wasn't a question. I expected. I searched for the right word. I don't know. Something darker? I nodded honestly. His expression remained unreadable. Most people do. He walked toward a bookshelf near the fireplace. From one of the shelves, he picked up a small framed photograph. He looked at it for only a second before placing it face down. The movement was almost unconscious, as though he didn't realize I had noticed. Who's in the picture? For the first time since we'd met. He hesitated. No one you need to worry about. His answer ended the conversation. Or at least he thought it did. Maria returned carrying a tray of warm chocolate chip cookies and 2 glasses of milk. Lily's eyes sparkled. You made these. I did. Can I have 2? Maria laughed. If your mother says yes. I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked me before giving Lily something. 2 is fine. She grinned and hurried toward the kitchen table. I watched Vincent watching her. Not smiling. Not speaking. Just watching. There was something almost painful in his eyes. Like a man standing outside a window, looking into a life he had convinced himself he could never have. Then Lily broke a cookie in half. She ran back across the room. Without saying a word, she held one half up to Vincent. For you. He stared at the tiny piece of cookie in complete silence, as though no one had shared something so small with him in a very, very long time. The strongest walls don't keep enemies out. They keep old memories trapped inside. Vincent accepted the half of the cookie as though it were something fragile. Not because it could break. Because he could. For several quiet seconds, he simply looked at it. Then he took one small bite. Lily grinned so proudly that Maria laughed from across the kitchen. See, she said. Everything tastes better when it's shared. Vincent lowered his eyes. I suppose it does. His voice carried a softness I hadn't heard before. A softness that disappeared the moment a phone vibrated somewhere inside his jacket. He glanced at the screen. The warmth vanished from his face. Business had returned. I'll be back in a few minutes. He slipped the phone into his pocket without answering it in front of us. As he walked toward the study at the end of the hallway, 2 men in dark suits quietly followed. The heavy wooden door closed behind them. Silence settled over the kitchen again. Lily happily finished her second cookie while Maria poured me another cup of tea. You don't have to be afraid of him. I looked up. Maria smiled gently. I wasn't hiding it very well, was I? You've had quite a day. She sat across from me. I've known Vincent since he was 12. That surprised me. 12. She nodded. I worked for his grandmother. I glanced toward the closed study door. Has he always been? I searched for the right word. Like this. Maria understood immediately. Quiet. I nodded. He wasn't born quiet. Her smile became tinged with sadness. Life simply taught him there were fewer things to say each year. Before I could ask another question, laughter echoed through the hallway. Tiny laughter. Lily's. She had wandered into the enormous living room where a black grand piano stood beside the fireplace. Her fingers lightly pressed one key. A single note floated through the house. Then another. Then another. I stood quickly. Lily, sweetheart, don't touch. It's all right. Vincent's voice interrupted me. He had returned without me noticing. He stood in the doorway, jacket removed, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. The tattoos along his arms were no longer hidden. Dark ink. Roses. Clockwork. Latin words I couldn't read. Power and pain woven together across pale skin. He walked toward the piano. I expected him to stop Lily. Instead, he pulled out the bench. Sit. Lily climbed onto it eagerly. You play? She asked. A little. A little means yes. For the first time, I heard him laugh. It was quiet. Almost rusty. As though he hadn't used it in years. He placed his large hands over the piano keys. A slow melody filled the room. Gentle. Melancholy. Beautiful. Nothing about it matched the man people feared. Lily watched in amazement. You know songs. I know one. No. She shook her head confidently. You know this one because you miss someone. The music stopped. Instantly. The final note lingered in the air. Vincent's hands remained frozen above the keys. His jaw tightened ever so slightly. Maria lowered her eyes. Even she didn't speak. I realized my daughter had unknowingly stepped into a place none of us could see. a place Vincent kept locked far more carefully than the gates outside. I'm sorry, Lily whispered. I didn't mean to make you sad. Vincent slowly turned toward her. There wasn't anger in his face, only surprise. He crouched until they were eye level again. You didn't. His voice was barely louder than the fading piano notes. You reminded me. Of who? A long silence followed. Long enough that I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, my little sister. The words were almost carried away by the room itself. She loved this song. No one moved. No one knew what to say. Lily gently wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. It was the innocent hug only a child could give. Without fear. Without questions. Without expecting anything in return. Vincent closed his eyes. Just for a second. And in that single heartbeat, the feared Mafia boss didn't look like the man who controlled an empire. He looked like an older brother who had never stopped grieving. As I watched him carefully return Lily's hug, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe until now. The most dangerous thing about Vincent Moretti wasn't his power. It was how much pain he had learned to hide behind it. The truth rarely arrives with a warning. Sometimes it begins with a ringing phone, and a name you were never supposed to hear. The moment Lily stepped away from Vincent, his expression changed again. Not because of us. Because his phone vibrated for the second time. This time, he answered. I said no interruptions. Silence. Then his eyes hardened. I'm coming. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. I'm sorry. He looked directly at me. I need 10 minutes. You don't have to apologize. I do. His answer was immediate. You are guests in my home. Guests. Not obligations. Not responsibilities. Guests. He disappeared into the study once again. The heavy wooden door closed. This time, it didn't close completely. Just enough for voices to drift into the hallway. I had no intention of listening. But then I heard my own name. Emily Carter. Every muscle in my body froze. Another unfamiliar male voice answered. The media already knows she's here. They know what I allowed them to know. Vincent's voice remained calm. What about Daniel? He has been paid. A long pause followed. Paid. My stomach tightened. The other man continued. He signed the agreement 6 months ago. Agreement? Nothing made sense anymore. Vincent's voice became dangerously quiet. I told you never to mention that in front of me again. I'm sorry, boss. Silence. Then, the people behind this wedding haven't stopped. Wedding? People behind it? I leaned closer without realizing it. The conversation continued. They'll come for the woman. And the child. They're both targets. My breath caught. Targets? For what? Footsteps echoed inside the study. I immediately stepped away from the door. A second later it opened. Vincent walked out. His expression revealed nothing. If he suspected I had overheard anything, he didn't show it. You've been standing here long? I hesitated. Only a minute. He studied me. Not suspiciously. Almost carefully. As long as you didn't hear anything important. The words were gentle, but something in them unsettled me. I wanted to ask, who had paid Daniel? What agreement? Why were Lily and I in danger? Instead, I asked the simplest question. Why us? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the garden where Lily was chasing butterflies with Maria. Only after making sure she couldn't hear us did he speak. Have you ever wondered why Daniel proposed so suddenly? The question caught me off guard. I frowned. It did happen rather quickly. 3 months. He nodded. Before that he'd barely stayed in one relationship longer than 6. I stared at him. How do you know that? His jaw tightened. I make it my business to know things. That wasn't an answer. It was an escape. Before I could press further, one of the bodyguards entered through the front door. Boss. He handed Vincent a sealed envelope. No return address. Vincent opened it immediately. Inside, there was only one photograph. His face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough for me to notice. He turned the picture over before I could see it. What is it? I asked quietly. Nothing. I knew that answer was a lie. A single folded note slipped from the envelope onto the hardwood floor. Neither of us reached it first. A small pair of hands did. Lily. She picked up the paper with innocent curiosity. Is this yours? Before anyone could stop her, she unfolded it. Her smile disappeared. What does this mean? She looked up at Vincent. Confused. Scared. He gently took the note from her trembling fingers. I caught only one line before he folded it shut. You stole what belongs to us. The room became unbearably still. No one spoke. Not Maria. Not the bodyguards. Not even Vincent. He simply looked at the words for several seconds. Then he raised his eyes to mine. For the first time since we had met, I saw genuine fear. Not fear for himself, fear for us. And in that instant, I understood one terrifying truth. Walking away from the church had saved my heart, but it had also led my daughter and me straight into a danger neither of us could yet understand. Some promises are written in ink. The ones that change your life are written in sacrifice. Vincent folded the note with slow, deliberate movements. No panic, no anger, only control. The kind of control a man learns after surviving too many storms. He handed the note to one of his bodyguards. "Burn it." The man nodded once. No questions, no hesitation. Within seconds, both he and the message disappeared down the hallway. I stared at Vincent. You knew this would happen. It wasn't a question. He didn't deny it. I knew it was possible. Possible. My voice cracked despite every effort to remain calm. Someone threatens my daughter, and you call that possible? His eyes met mine. For the first time since we'd met, I saw regret. Not guilt. Regret. You have every right to be angry. I don't want your permission to be angry. The words escaped before I could stop them. I want the truth. Silence stretched between us. Maria quietly led Lily toward the garden. Come help me pick flowers. But Mommy, just a few minutes, sweetheart. Lily looked back at me before following her. The moment the glass doors closed behind them, the house became painfully still. Vincent motioned toward the library. Please. I followed him. Not because I trusted him completely, because I was running out of reasons not to. The library smelled of old leather and cedarwood. Thousands of books covered the walls. A fire crackled softly in the stone fireplace despite the warm afternoon. Vincent remained standing. So will you. I folded my arms. He accepted that without complaint. I didn't choose today by accident. I already figured that out. No. He exhaled quietly. You haven't. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Not for a weapon. For an old leather wallet. From it, he carefully removed a faded photograph. The edges were worn. The colors nearly gone. He handed it to me. A young girl smiled at the camera beside a teenage boy. The resemblance struck me immediately. Your sister? He nodded. Sophia. She couldn't have been older than 10. The smile on her face reminded me of Lily. Something tightened inside my chest. What happened to her? His eyes remained fixed on the fire. She died. The words landed with unbearable simplicity. No dramatic story. No heroic ending. I wasn't there when she needed me. He swallowed once. I was 15. I promised I'd protect her. I failed. The room fell silent except for the crackling fire. I looked down at the photograph again. Then back at Vincent. You blame yourself. I never stopped. Another long pause. Then he looked directly at me. When I saw Lily standing beside you in that church. His voice became quieter. I saw my sister standing alone again. I felt my heartbeat slow. Everything suddenly became heavier. This wasn't pity. It wasn't obsession. It wasn't some twisted fantasy about rescuing strangers. It was grief. Grief that had survived almost 20 years. I couldn't walk away. He said it almost to himself. I've walked away once before. I buried someone because of it. I won't do it twice. Tears burned behind my eyes. For the first time, I believed him. Not because of his reputation. Not because of his wealth. Because broken people recognize other broken people. Before I could answer, the grandfather clock in the hallway struck 6. Almost immediately, one of the bodyguards hurried into the library. Boss. His breathing was uneven. We have a problem. Vincent didn't turn. What happened? The guard hesitated, then spoke the words that drained every trace of warmth from the room. The church security cameras were hacked. They weren't watching the wedding. He looked directly at me. They were watching Emily. My blood ran cold. The guard continued. And whoever sent the note. His voice lowered almost to a whisper. Already knew she would leave the church with you before it ever happened. The people who change your destiny are rarely the ones who promise forever. They're the ones who stay when leaving would be easier. Nobody spoke after the bodyguard delivered the news. The silence inside the library felt heavier than the walls themselves. They knew. I whispered. Before I did. Vincent gave a slow nod. Yes. I struggled to understand. My wedding. I looked toward the floor. Was never just my wedding. No. His answer came without hesitation. It was someone's plan. Every word tightened the knot inside my chest. They wanted me there. They wanted you exposed. I closed my eyes. Every smile, every congratulations, every carefully arranged flower. Had I really been walking into a trap while believing I was walking toward a future? I don't understand. My voice sounded smaller than ever. I'm just a waitress. Vincent stepped closer. Not enough to invade my space. Just enough that I didn't feel alone. People like you often believe they're ordinary. He paused. The people hunting them rarely agree. Before I could ask another question, little footsteps echoed down the hallway. Lily. She rushed into the library carrying a handful of wildflowers she had picked with Maria. Mommy. She stopped the moment she noticed our faces. Her smile faded. Why is everyone sad again? Children always notice the truth first. I knelt in front of her. We're just talking. She tilted her head. No. She touched my cheek. You're scared. I couldn't lie to her. So I simply hugged her. She wrapped her tiny arms around my neck. It's okay, she whispered. We're together. Over her shoulder, I saw Vincent looking away, as though those 3 simple words had reached somewhere he kept hidden. Maria quietly entered behind Lily. Everything is ready upstairs. Vincent nodded. Then he surprised me. Emily. I looked up. The East Wing has been prepared for you and Lily. I frowned. And you? I live in the West Wing. The mansion suddenly seemed even larger. There are separate entrances. He continued calmly. You'll have complete privacy. I blinked. He wasn't asking me to share his room. He wasn't even asking me to share his life. He was giving me space. The kind of respect I hadn't realized I had been missing. You don't owe me anything, he said softly. Not gratitude. Not trust. And certainly not love. His blue eyes met mine one final time. I made one promise to myself a long time ago. What promise? His answer came almost as a whisper. If another innocent family ever crossed my path. He glanced at Lily. I would protect them before asking who they were. Something inside me finally gave way. Not because I had all the answers. Because I finally understood his heart. Power had built this mansion. Pain had filled it. Hope had just walked through its front door wearing a wrinkled wedding dress and holding a little girl's hand. Lily reached toward Vincent. You forgot these. She held out the remaining wildflowers. He accepted them carefully. I've never been given flowers before. She smiled. Then now you have. He looked down at the tiny bouquet for several seconds. Then, for the first time since I had met him, Vincent Moretti smiled. Not the restrained smile he had shown beside the piano. Not the polite smile he had offered to comfort a frightened child. This one reached his eyes. Quiet. Honest. Almost unfamiliar. It transformed the most feared man in the city into someone who simply looked human. Outside, the evening sun slipped below the horizon, casting warm golden light across the windows of a house that no longer felt cold. I had entered it believing I was escaping one broken promise. Instead, I had unknowingly stepped into a story that had begun years before I ever walked down that church aisle. And although I couldn't see the road ahead, for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't walking it alone.